Hey guys, this is episode 2 of our Daily Dig videos. We're going to be looking at Acts 1:8 today. This is your text for Monday, September the 6th. Um, and we're going to walk through Acts 1:8. It's a shorter passage. There's a few things that we've talked about that are not in this text, and that's okay. You're not going to find every element that we've talked about in every text, but be on the lookout for all of those things. And let's go ahead and dig into Acts 1:8. So as always, let's start with looking for repetitions. We don't see a lot of thematic repetitions, but there is a pronoun repetition that kind of indicates who we're talking to. You. There's a lot of you in this passage. And so we're left to ask ourselves, what are the antecedents for these pronouns? We also have one more in my, first person pronoun. So given the context of Acts 1:8, we know that Jesus is talking here. And so the my is Jesus. And the you that he's talking to is his disciples. This is after his resurrection, before his ascension, and he's promising them that the Holy Spirit will come. But they have to wait in Jerusalem until that time. And so we see that repetition of you is not unusual because he's talking to them, and these are his last words. And so he's really indicating what he wants of them. And so the next thing we want to look at is our verbs. There's a few in here and some interesting tenses that we need to be aware of. So it says you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be my witnesses. Interestingly enough, this first one is a future tense. This is something that's going to happen, and we'll see in the context of Acts that this is in fact the day of Pentecost when they're all gathered together in the upper room. They do receive power from the Holy Spirit. So Jesus is promising this as a future event. Now this, when we start looking at whether this is an active verb or a passive verb, what we find in the Greek is they have a tense that we don't have. This is actually in the middle tense, which is when the subject is both performing and receiving an action. And so this makes sense for this passage. They're both receiving power, but it's something that they're receiving from the Holy Spirit. And so an interesting tense passage there that really indicates something for us. When the Holy Spirit has come, this is a past tense, right? And obviously he's active there. He is the one who's coming upon them. And it says, you shall be, another future tense, right? Which, interestingly enough, leads us into our next cause and effect, right? We will receive power, but the cause of that is when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. This is our cause. The effects are you will receive power, but that's dependent on the Holy Spirit coming. And you shall be my witnesses. This is another effect of the Holy Spirit coming and their receiving of power. And so all of these are contingent on the Holy Spirit coming upon them. Now, when we start to look for conjunctions, we note that this passage actually begins with a conjunction, meaning it's referring back to verse 7. In verse 6 and 7, the disciples have asked Jesus about, is this the time that you'll restore the kingdom to Israel? And he's basically telling them, it's really none of your business, the times and periods that God has set. Here's what you need to be concerned about. And then he leads into, so this actually sets up a contrast. They shouldn't be interested so much in whether they're going to have the kingdom restored to them, and rather they need to be waiting on the Holy Spirit and expecting to receive that power to be his witnesses. Here there is and connects this idea of receiving power when the Holy Spirit comes, and they're being witnesses. And so here's an interesting one before we get to our list. We have a both and. And generally, when you say both, that means two. And so the original here, you shall be my witnesses both in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria. These are linked, obviously. Jerusalem is linking this, and it's linking these as a pair. So it's both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria. And then, almost as an addendum to that, he says, even to the remotest parts of the earth. And so when we start to look at a list, some people might be tempted to say, oh, well, Jerusalem is 1, Judea is 2, Samaria is 3, and the remotest parts of the world is 4. However, that's not how Jesus seems to indicate he wants that in that passage, because he says both in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria as a pair, and even to the remotest parts of the earth. And so there is, in fact, a list of 3 there. Again, we don't seem to have a comparison in this passage, nor do we seem to have a figure of speech, although some might argue that witnesses might be considered a figure of speech. However, I would say that they were, in fact, witnesses. They did exactly what any witness does. That wasn't you could take that very literally. They told of what they had seen in their time with Jesus. And so I hope you guys have enjoyed digging in this smaller passage. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. And we look forward to doing another daily dig with you tomorrow.